Greetings, dear ones. I am KRYON of Magnetic Service. In this particular week, we again examine perceptions and paradigms. And we encourage everyone listening to understand one premise. The shift that is going on this planet is one of consciousness, period. It's how human beings are starting to awaken to different kinds of thinking. It's a corner-turning event, you might say, in humanity. Socialists will see it, and someday it will be in books. And they'll have different names for it. But we just call it an awakening to integrity. But more than that is an awakening personally for every single old soul and person who wishes to watch this that is even not an old soul, because it starts to rewrite even human nature. Every single week in these channelings this month, we're bringing a little bit of a different subject. So far, you know what we've been covering, the perceptions on how you might react to certain things, or maybe even more, how you might be able to reframe certain things in your life so that you don't get the same results every time that you'd like not to. That's what it's about. Is it possible that this awakening that is going on the planet, this elevation in consciousness that even is slight, is it possible that it could help with individuals and their lives and the things that you experience every single day? We keep speaking of a worldwide event, this shift. And you've got to see it in many ways. It's different from your grandfather's world, dear ones. Very different. But now we're trying to pull it to you personally, to how you might be able to then reframe some of the things that you experience on a daily basis in your culture. One of the biggest ones that you all have at some level is fear. Now, at another time this month, we were talking about worry. But it's even related to this time. The main thing is fear. You all have it. You all have it. Now, there will be some who say, I don't have that, KRYON. Yes, you do. You all have a certain amount of fear, because that keeps you from jumping off a cliff, for instance, or being cognizant of stepping off a curb. So it's more than just being attentive to your life. It comes from a basic fear. But that kind of fear is survival fear. But sometimes that survival fear will overlap into manifested fear from what you think. Every single one of you has a program. And depending upon what your parents did or told you or what happened to you as children, you are programmed to fear things. And these are the fears we talk about. There are some of you who are afraid of life. Not all of you. We have so many old souls who have figured this out. But so many of the fears today are because of your culture. You will call them survival fears within your culture. Example, fear of losing your job. It's a big one. Fear that your children will have an accident when they leave for the day, whether it's school or something else. Fear that something will happen unexpected because you've watched the news and seen it. Fear that perhaps there'll be an accident in traffic. And so every time they walk out the door, there's fear. Now, some of you, again, don't have this. You'll say, now, wait a minute, Kryon, that's not me, but it's many people. Now, the ones who watch this particular episode and this particular channeling, you also have the option to share this. These channelings are all then repeated later in another place for free. And you can then refer to them if you choose. It's about those who fear life. What do you do? Before I came into my partner's life, he was similar to this. For there were many things that he had within the business that he had that would cause him anxiety and fear. And you might say, well, they were small things. To him, they were not small things. Any more than to a mother, a small thing is what's going to happen to their children that day. It's fear. And I'll tell you something, and that we have said before. Fear, anxiety, and worry will shorten your life. You just heard an excerpt today, planned for today, about the inner child. And that is one of the solutions, is to be able to create laughter for yourself or funny scenarios or things that you can reframe into something funnier than it is because you know better. How many of the fears that you have on a daily basis, like I'm telling you about, how many of those do you think you have created? You've created them to think perhaps that you're helping by being like concerned, but it really is fear. And the answer is most of them. Whatever happens to the child that day happens. 99% of the time they come home. And they come home and you drop your fears because they walk in the door. What has that gotten you today? You know, how was it for fearing today, Mom? How did you do? Knowing that you'd shorten your life just a little bit as they left the house. And that's what we're talking about. My partner has done something when he found out this truth, that most of the fears he had were manufactured by his own consciousness of things that he was afraid of because he was told to be afraid of them or because he projected what might happen that day. And what he did was to first, number one, recognize the fear. I'm afraid. Or, my goodness, I caught myself complaining about something, but really it's a fear. What if that happens? Oh my goodness. You get together with other people and talk about, oh my goodness, what if that happens? Now that's a shared fear. We're able to get together and have a fear committee. And some of you do that as well. And that just enhances the fears. My partner did something. And that's this. When he recognized the fear, he gave it a personality. And the personality was the fear of the big ball of fire in the Wizard of Oz movie. That's fearful. The big voice that pounded out from the walls in the Wizard of Oz movie when they met the wizard and then they found a man behind the curtain. It was just this little man, and he turned around and said, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And it was funny. And every fear from then on, he saw as a joke. He said, I see you there. You're trying your best, aren't you? Ah, yeah, I know I manufactured you, but it's really kind of cute. You're pretty small. So why don't you just go get in the back seat for a while? I know you're there. I can't really totally get rid of you, but I can sure make fun of you. And it worked. It worked for him. Every one of you has a process of reframing that which you yourself have manifested into a false fear. Wait a minute, Kryon. Are you saying we shouldn't be concerned when our children? No, there's a difference between being concerned and being afraid. And that's what we're talking about. Are any of you in constant fear over something? The loss of this or that? Or worrying that this is going to happen because it happened before, or your dad or your mom said it might happen? Do you realize what you've just done? You've etched a program into your own mind, and now you're working with it. And when I say working with it, You're manifesting it, you're massaging it, you're telling others about it, and there it is. And it's fake, completely. Reframing fear is the subject. That is a new paradigm for so many of you to hear this. First, recognize it, and you will. It'll come flying out of your brain and out of your mouth, and you'll go, oh, that's me. I actually was programmed to fear this because of perhaps I was told to, or perhaps I had friends that had something happen. It is reframable. You can work with this, dear ones. This is a new tool for an awakened soul. You chose to fear, you might say. Now you can choose not to. The choice is always yours in this life of yours of awakening. What would happen if you loved the fear? And you would say, oh, maybe that's going a little too far. And yet, that is what many have done. They throw love at it because they recognize it first. They throw love at it, and it goes away snickering and saying, well, I tried. Maybe next time. And you go, yeah, try again, but you won't make it. This is the answer. The inner child, don't lose it. Don't lose it, because that's going to be needed. That's going to be needed when you take away fear. I am KRYON, in love with all of you. There are so many new tools, dear ones, that'll help you to live longer. And so it is.